They say every town has its secrets, but mine didn't just have secrets. It had traditions, old ones, rotten ones. Every spring, one person disappeared. No one asked why. No one reported it. No one cried. Because in the fold, that's what we called our community, spring wasn't about flowers or sunshine. It was about blood and silence and sacrifice. I was 13 the year I learned the truth, and by then, I'd already seen too much to ever forget. This is the story of the cult that raised me, and the spring I ran. If you're new to this channel, subscribe. If you've ever looked into the woods and felt like something was looking back, stay. This story is for you. I grew up in a place that doesn't show up on maps. A deep green valley in southern Missouri, ringed by hills so dense with trees they looked like walls. Only one road led in, and no one ever left. We called ourselves the Fold, 27 families, bound by soil, blood, and silence. No phones, no TV, no internet. We weren't allowed to have clocks. Time belongs to the earth, they said, and we were just visitors. We grew our own food, raised animals, homeschooled our kids. Everything we needed came from within, and anything that came from outside was called rot. Rot was forbidden. That included books, radios, and ideas. Except for one day. One day we celebrated the turning. It came every spring on the first new moon after the last frost. The day the earth woke up. The day we gave thanks. The day we gave something back. What we gave, I wouldn't learn until years later, but we all knew the signs. Because every turning, someone disappeared. They never screamed. They never said goodbye. One day they were just gone. We were told it was the earth claiming its due, that it was a blessing to be chosen, that those who vanished had gone into the roots. And you never, ever asked questions. Not even when your brother disappeared. My brother Elijah was 17 the spring he vanished. I was 10. He was tall, quiet, and different. Too kind, too curious. The elders didn't like that. He used to sneak me stories. Not the approved ones from the hall, but real books. Weathered paperbacks he found God knows where. Horror stories, science fiction, even poetry. He said reading made the world feel bigger. He said truth is always hidden in fiction. One night, 2 weeks before the turning, he woke me up. I still remember the look in his eyes, something between panic and fire. He didn't speak, just gestured for me to follow. We crept out of the house barefoot, hearts pounding like drums. No one was supposed to leave after nightfall, but Elijah knew the paths better than anyone. We went down the back trail, past the fence that marked the sacred boundary, down to a place I'd only heard about in whispers, the old chapel. It was ruins now, a cracked stone skeleton of a church from before the Fold took over the valley. No one went there, no one was allowed. He led me inside to the back wall where the altar had once stood. Moonlight spilled in through a hole in the roof. Bats rustled overhead. He pulled up a plank of rotted wood from the floor. Underneath was dirt, and buried in that dirt, bones, hundreds of them, small, white, dry, not animal, not ancient, human, children. I stared at them, shaking, my voice caught in my throat. Elijah, what is this? He didn't look away. They lied to us, he said. They're not feeding the earth. They're feeding something in it. Then he knelt down, dug deeper, pulled out something smooth and black, a stone mask. It had no eyes, no mouth, just ridges like tree bark and a smell like something that had been underground too long. "We have to go," he said. "We have to tell someone." But then we heard it, a breath, not ours, not human, deep, a wet, long, like something enormous breathing through soil. The ground shifted beneath our feet. We ran. 2 days later, Elijah was gone. They said he had been chosen, that he gave himself, that he walked into the woods at dawn and never looked back. But I knew the truth. He tried to run, and something caught him. After Elijah disappeared, something changed in me. Not just grief, not just fear. It was a crack. And through that crack, things started to seep in. My mother stopped looking me in the eye. My father barely spoke at all. The hall leaders, the elders, they watched me now, not with pity, with interest. I started waking up with dirt on my hands. No memory of leaving my bed. One morning, I found scratches on my arms, thin, curved like vines had coiled around me in my sleep. I asked my mother what they were. She said, "Growing pains." But I wasn't growing. I was sinking. The fold said children were like trees. You had to prune them so they grow the right way. That spring, I was told I would begin my shaping, a sacred tradition, an honor. They said I'd serve during the turning, that I would carry the seed basket. I'd never heard of it before. No one had. On the eve of the ritual, they bathed me in cold ash water, sang songs in a language older than English. They gave me a white robe, but no shoes. I asked my father if Elijah had done this. He didn't answer, just tied a woven bracelet of willow bark around my wrist. Then he whispered, "Be still if it calls your name." That night, they brought me to the grove, a place I'd only heard in bedtime stories. A ring of black pine so thick the moonlight couldn't reach the center. Torches were stuck in the ground, flickering in orange halos. In the center of the ring was the hole, not a well, not a pit, not even a grave, just a perfect circle of black earth that looked wrong, like a mouth that had forgotten how to close. They handed me the basket. Inside were smooth stones, each carved with a different symbol. One of them was bleeding. The elders began chanting. The others stood still, heads bowed. I was told to walk the circle, drop one stone every few steps. When I reached the hole, the last stone was warm in my hand. The blood on it had dried. A wind blew up from below, not air, something heavier. It smelled like rot and spring rain. And I heard a voice, not aloud, not in sound, but inside. It said, "You are not ready, but you will be." I dropped the last stone. The wind stopped, the torches died, and the world went silent. That night, I had a dream. I was in the hole, buried alive, and above me, through the dirt, 100 faces stared down, and one of them was Elijah's. He was smiling, but his mouth was too wide. Spring deepened. The thaw was complete. Mud swallowed boots. Worms surfaced in clusters, and under it all, the ground pulsed. Not always, just sometimes, like the land was breathing. After the ceremony, they treated me differently. People stepped aside when I passed. The kids I'd grown up with wouldn't look at me. Even my mother began locking her bedroom door. I was being prepared. But for what? No one would say. I started hearing things at night, whispers, not in words, but in meaning, like feelings with sound. Once, I followed the sound outside, barefoot, middle of the night. The air was warm, too warm for April. I walked out to the edge of the fields, to where the old tree line began, and there, in the wet dirt, were footprints, small, bare, leading into the woods. But there was something wrong with them. They were deep, too deep, like the weight of the body pressing into the earth was unnatural. I followed. The footprints led to the old root cellar, a place we were forbidden to go since before I could walk. They said it was unsafe, unstable. It was open. I went down. The air was thick and sweet, like rotting fruit. Inside, the walls were covered in roots. They weren't growing into the cellar, they were growing out of it. They moved when I looked at them. Slow, twitching motions, like something reacting to being seen. And then at the far end of the room, I saw a figure, crouched, facing the wall, hair matted with mud. "Elijah?" I whispered. The figure twitched, not turned, twitched like a puppet jerked by a hidden string. Then it stood, too tall, too thin, and it began to turn around. But before I saw its face, I ran. That night, I awoke to find mud on my sheets, and under my pillow, a small wet stone, carved with the same symbol I had dropped into the hole. Only this one was cracked. I didn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The root cellar, the figure, the cracking stone, and the sound, that wet breathing through the walls of the valley. It wasn't a dream. The fold didn't talk to me anymore. They watched, like they were waiting for something. My mother left herbs at my door. My father sharpened tools by the fire, tools we hadn't used in years. And then one night, I saw it. I was walking back from the stream. The sun was down, the wind was sharp, and then silence. No frogs, no birds. Even the water stopped sounding like water. Then, from the other side of the clearing, I saw it move. It was tall, too tall for a person. Its skin looked like bark soaked in blood. Its limbs too long, its head tilted, like it hadn't yet learned how to hold itself up. But the worst part, it had no face, just lines carved like symbols where eyes and mouth should be, and in its hands it held something. I stepped forward. A shirt, my brother's, still damp. I turned and ran. The air behind me pulsed like a heartbeat in the soil. The trees leaned in. The ground seemed to breathe faster. By the time I reached the house, the sky had darkened, not night, just wrong. The clouds swirled, thick and low, and standing on the porch were the elders. They didn't speak. They only opened the door. And inside, lit by candles, was a stone altar I had never seen before, and a chair. For me, that night, I learned the truth, not from words, from memory, not mine. When I sat in the chair, I blacked out, and what I saw, what was shown to me, still burns in my brain. The fold had been here for centuries, long before maps, before towns. They didn't worship God. They fed something older, something below. Each spring it woke, hungry, and to keep the land fertile, to keep their bloodline strong, they gave it what it wanted, not lives, lineage. My family wasn't holy. We were breeders, the bloodline of the first, the roots in the soil. And now it was my turn to serve, to join, to descend. They tried to keep me calm, said I was chosen, said it was an honor, said I would merge with the roots and be reborn. But their eyes, they weren't proud. They were afraid, not of me, of what would happen if I refused. That night, I packed a bag, some food, a flashlight, a hunting knife Elijah had hidden under the floorboards, and I ran out the back, past the barn, through the fence line. I didn't stop to breathe. I didn't look back. I didn't listen to the voices that rose from the trees, voices whispering my name. The woods seemed alive. Branches clawed at my clothes. The ground felt soft, like something shifting just beneath it. But I didn't stop, not even when I heard the first howl, long and wet and wrong, not even when I felt the wind push against me like fingers. After an hour, I reached the main road, but there were no cars, just darkness and cold air. Then I saw headlights, a truck, old, loud. I stumbled into the road, waving my arms. It skidded to a stop. A man stepped out, rifle in hand. "What the hell you doing out here, boy?" I couldn't speak. I just fell to my knees. He drove me into the next town. I didn't tell him much, just that my family had gone crazy, that I needed help. He didn't press, just gave me a jacket and a ride to the sheriff's station. The fold was gone by the time they got there. No houses, no people, just empty fields, like no one had ever lived there. But the hole, it was still there, and something was moving in it. Years passed. I tried to forget, tried to live a normal life, but I couldn't sleep near trees. I couldn't eat root vegetables. I flinched at the sound of spring wind, and every year, on the first new moon after the frost, I lock every door, I bury the lights, and I wait. Because I know they're still out there, because sometimes I wake up with dirt under my nails and a stone under my pillow. It's been 15 years. I changed my name, moved across the country. No one knows where I'm from. And I never talk about Missouri, not to friends, not to therapists, not even to the woman I married. But I think about it every spring. Last week a package arrived. No return address, no postage, just a small wooden box left on my porch. Inside, a handful of damp earth, a thin strip of willow bark, and a stone, carved, with a crack down the middle, just like the one I dropped into the hole. The same night, my daughter, 4 years old, woke up crying. She said, "There's a tall man in the trees. He has no face." I told her it was a dream, but I knew, because the next morning I found footprints in the flower bed, bare, deep, and beside them a trail of red lilies, blooming out of season. Spring has come again, and this time it remembered my name. This story was voiced using artificial intelligence. If you caught any errors, drop a comment so we can improve. And if you made it this far, you're one of us now. Subscribe, because roots grow back, and spring always returns.